Okay. All right. Awesome. Welcome. We're going to talk about some AI stuff today, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. You sent me a link that you wanted me to watch. It was, do you remember the podcast name?
Well, it's like This Is an Emergency. It's the episode with Mo Gawdat um where Stephen interviews Mo on his podcast, Diary of a CEO,
Yeah.
about Mo's AI background, which is the second episode that Mo went on for. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's ex-Google executive, right?
Yeah,
Mo is. And
correct.
then tell me a little bit about the other guy, because I hadn't heard of him, but obviously he has a very popular podcast that's really well known, and Mo likes
Mm.
him as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't I wouldn't say I've I know too much about Stephen, but he he's had his own, I guess, challenges in childhood, and that's driven him towards business. And he's a serial entrepreneur, as I understand, and a really great podcaster. It's one of the most successful podcasts in the US, is Diary of a CEO, and particularly attracts, I guess, thought leadership in all sorts of really relevant topics that are quite universal. It's not just one kind of topic. Like what brings it together is kind of like that, diary vibe, the confessions vibe, of sharing authentically. It's like not only an interview, but a conversation that transforms the interviewee and the interviewer. So I think it's a really great podcast, and that one in particular was quite eye-opening, and one of the best summaries of like a holistic view on what's going on with AI and humanity.
Yeah, I mean, it was really eye-opening for me. I was like, I mean, I remember writing you back like my thoughts, and I was like kind of sad by missing out on getting more done before AI got here, basically. It wasn't that I was like, oh, I don't know anything about AI, so I'm disappointed. And I also was like, I do need to learn this stuff like really quickly, because I think there are amazing opportunities, in the space, and even not in that space, but just be able to use AI in the spaces that I already am in. And then for other people too, the space that they're already in, be able to think, how can I pull the tools available that are at my fingertips into whatever I'm trying to do, and make it more streamlined and better, so I can better compete and better earn money and save money, and to get myself in a position of being prepared for what might happen, what might be a really bad thing for humanity. So it's kind of like, I can't beat them, so I might as well join them, and just pulling in, the tools I can while I still can. And so it sent me down a rabbit hole of learning AI the last 2 weeks. From things I had been wanting to do is like write a book, make a documentary, and then also I have a solar company that I'm a solar developer. So I'm speaking with solar clients, potential people that maybe want to install solar either on their home or business. And so then that involves some back end automation that I could use AI for, but also ad copy generation and sales dialogue, automated texting, chat bots with potential prospects as well. So there's a lot of potential applications, in like a sales business as well, for anyone who's in sales. And then there's also just a lot of apps that are already in existence to help you automate, that need to brush up on in order how to get the AI to integrate with those apps as well. So, but as an economist, I got my brain thinking too. Like, what is this? How is this going to change different labor markets? Who's going to be put out of work? How will maybe even programmers will be put out of work, because like ChatGPT just generates Python code pretty easily, and it's never correct the way that it puts it out. I've never seen it just punch one out that worked right away, but like if you have some common sense and a little bit of background, you can just look through it, change a few things, or type back to ChatGPT like, hey, this is my concern about this part of the code. Like that's what I was doing in my dialogue with it. I was like, I think if you do it this way, it's not going to work totally all the time. Can you change it so it's like this, or how can we do it like that? And then it would just write me back a new code. And I'm going to try it, and it would give me errors. I'd copy and paste the error messages back to ChatGPT, and it would punch out, oh, sorry about that. Yeah, oversight. Here's the corrected code. So it took a lot of like troubleshooting, but I was able to generate 5 or 6 different Python codes in the last couple of weeks to kind of do things I could never do before. That I was like, wow, this is great now that I can do that. Just so anyone who's watching knows, I did take a computer science class in college to learn C++, but that was 20 years ago, and so I get the logic of how to do algorithms and make programs, but I don't know any of the code, which is fine because I can understand it when it's written for me, but and be able to do what I just said, but now I don't have to generate it on my own, which is awesome. So I think there's some huge potential for that industry to change, and thinking about where will those developers go if they're not needed anymore, and they'll probably go into developing other models of AI, but also into the crypto industry was a couple of things that I had thought might happen with them. So, I wanted to talk with you about, kind of get a sense for what you might want to learn about, or how you think you can apply AI, or where are you at in the process, and kind of give me your, like, what's happening on your side, Victoria.
Well, yeah, just checking in on the pulse of things. I feel quite similar to you. I wish I learned about AI earlier. I never really considered myself a techie. I'm not really interested in learning code. And I just have too many people around me, or tech people, and they get that stuff. I just want to be able to speak the language, so to understand it enough to communicate, to remove bottlenecks, to support and lead projects that incorporate technology. And because it is a tool that's so powerful, I'm talking about AI, but also other emerging tools, as you mentioned, like blockchain and Web3 and 5G and cloud and all the the technologies that will kind of combine together to create the next evolution of tech or internet. And I see that as the kind of like the foot in the door, the entry place of the new playing field for the next generation. But there's also the other aspect, which Mo talks greatly to, which is the human aspect. And like, that's probably going to be just as important, and more and more and more important as we continue to develop technology. So for me, my interests are no longer in yes, I'm interested in using AI for business and in playing that game. It's important. It's skills that are very useful for today's context. I'm also really interested in AI's application for complex kind of distribution systems, or like basically economics, supply chain, and resource distribution, and basically effective governance, and finding solutions to the most mega challenges that humanity is facing, such as how do we get China to cooperate with America? How do we unite the left and the right? and how do we create a more unified, harmonious relationship between humanity themselves, but also humanity and our environment. Like things like this that have a quadrillion times, squared variables, and require compute power that just humans in a billion years could never figure out, all of humanity, unless it was combined into a supercomputer in quantum computing. And so those use cases I'm particularly interested. But of course, let's come down from, like the dream thing. Like that's something that, a project could move towards funding that and really initiating that. But I'm sure that's already happening, and I'm interested in in accelerating that. But yeah, for now, where I'm at, I'm using AI quite basically. I'm using it generally to search out some challenges or problems or questions that I have day to day. Much like Google, I'm thinking, okay, is ChatGPT the better tool for this, or is it Google? And also for work, I'm using ChatGPT to summarize a lot of my things. I can't remember what the PDF reader thing, to read PDFs. I'm using Fathom AI to summarize my transcripts and record my Zoom calls. I'm using different content creation AIs to create content as part of my marketing and content role. And yeah, ChatGPT is super versatile, so I use it for those things as well. A big part of my creative writing and production in events, but also content creation, is done by AI. At least on either the first or the second go. It's like I'm soundboarding with the internet. Is how it feels. I'm getting more into images as well. So I guess, yeah, content creation, administrative things, summarizing things. I'm so looking forward to what is it called? Copilot, Microsoft Copilot. What's it called? Microsoft. Yeah, that like when Copilot is released to the public, I will get onto that straight away, and I need it for my taxes and debt and creating PowerPoints that are more powerful than the current PowerPoint AI generators that I'm using. Yeah, if you've heard of Copilot.
No, I haven't. No, I was going to ask. So it sounds like something that's financially taking in data and giving you answers to it, or tell us a little bit about it.
No, it's so much more than that. It's basically imagine Microsoft Suite paired with ChatGPT, or ChatGPT 4 or 5, and then paired with the store and the complete data storage of all of your personalized user data. So if whatever Microsoft can access, although it doesn't own it, it can put through an AI filter or brain and give you the result of someone who's basically had analyzed all of your information as well as the internet, and can respond to you in a human manner. So use cases include creating a PowerPoint from a PDF or a document from somewhere in your drive, creating a table, or being a junior data analyst by turning your Excel into an amazing visualization with just a prompt. Creating completely brand aligned assets from whatever you have in your drive. It's basically you can ask it to do, what you do on a day-to-day basis, including communicate with your teammates or summarize, a team meeting, or collaborate in these ways. It's just like a super potent tool to enhance and make the existing Microsoft tools like a human assistant,
I wonder,
it's
would
gonna
it be able to
replace a lot of
be a
jobs.
part of like a group chat as well, so that it could track what your comments are and what your team's goals are and what each member of your team is saying and what they're trying to do, so that it could kind of automatically just start doing the things on your team for you, like another team member?
It's probably gonna get there soon.
That's pretty
But
rad.
it's already analyzing like everything, every single message on Teams, right? So it knows all the company goals. It knows, all of that within your ecosystem, of course.
One
Yeah.
one thing that I heard in that I'm kind of running into myself is with ChatGPT, you can only send it 4,000 characters at a time, basically, before the response starts degrading. And it sounds like you've been using some tools already, and that also Copilot would be another one where there's no like throughput limitation of, hey, I want to send it all my PDF 120 pages and I want it. But you have been saying you've been using something to summarize large PDFs, or, tell us a little about the other tools that you know of that don't have those throughput limitations.
Well, there's personalized AI, or I think personalized AI or personal AI. They're quite a early startup. And basically they create content based on the inputs that you give them, the data that you give them. So that it's kind of like you're cloning an AI version of yourself or your company, or, like, let's say I want it to write in the way that I write. I just put enough, like just put 2 books that I wrote in there and it can write the way that I write. It can basically, if you think about that, like it can write articles, it can write, messages, it can respond to it with a chatbot, like there's so many use cases to that. In terms of AI content creation, that's something that's really on my list. Like I've been looking into long form, like blog articles or white paper type of, that's like a lot of words, right? So those type of AI tools is, yeah, that's what I am using to create long forms. But yeah, I haven't I'm up to the stage where I'm ready to buy it. I haven't yet bought it yet because our copywriter only just left us this week. Yeah, for the next few weeks we're in this uncertain place of what's next, but at least we know that we have these tools to lean on in the short term.
So what are those other tools that you haven't mentioned yet that you're using?
The exact names, there's just so many. Like I can send you a list.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I'm also reading off lists as well.
Okay.
Yeah, because some of these I've found out, I'm like, wow, that's cool, and then I use it a few times and it's hard to remember all the names.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can go through some of the ones I've been using for mine while you look, if you want to.
Just for the long form one, actually. Actually, yeah, it might take me some time to find it. It's something around content. It'll be easily found. There's only maybe like 3 on the market, with different pricing types of options. But yeah, share. Would love to hear from you.
Okay, cool. Let me take a second to get my. All right, yeah. So
Content at scale. That's one of them.
content at scale. Okay.
Yep.
All right. And that allows you to what, upload like hundreds of pages in a PDF format, or what do you use it for, and what does it let you do?
Oh, content at scale writes long form content
Okay.
and high ranking like SEO compatible content.
And
Yep.
how do you give it information? What is the input that it takes from you, and how much can it take in?
Well, I actually don't know how much it can take in, but it can translate, for example, keywords into a blog. It can translate existing URLs, like so it can read pages.
Okay. So it has
can
access to the internet.
podcasts. Yeah, yeah, and podcasts.
So that's another
It
reason
can.
that ChatGPT does not have access to the internet, right?
Yeah, but soon, like I don't know what ChatGPT 5 would. I don't know. Like we there's definitely ChatGPT-esque um tools that right now have access to the internet, including within Microsoft and Google. They're just not releasing it.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
document to post, YouTube to blog. So it has a couple of different ways to intake information. I don't know exactly how much you can put in there though.
Okay. Check that out. Content at scale, personalized AI, and Copilot. I got those. But yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about what I've been trying to do with my project and what I've been using. I like to write content. I'm trying to write a book and make a documentary on history. So that, like for me, there's like a lot of clips that I want to be able to utilize. I want to take a clip like of a YouTube video, download it and clip it out, and then inject it. So I have like a lot of um, audio files, I have video files, I have writing that I would like transcribed. I have also, or audio that I want transcribed. So what I did was I just did some, watched YouTube for a little while. I took some of I Googled some things that, hey, what apps do this? And I made a list for ChatGPT. And what I want to do is share my screen of the conversation that I have with ChatGPT. Let's see. I gotta find I think it's this one. Can you see this?
Yeah.
All right. So I just started with a small little list to see what he would do. And I said, hey, can you evaluate these apps below in these categories? And then I had him rate them. I don't know if the numbers are accurate, but he did punch out some numbers for me in the different categories. And one thing I should highlight up here was maximizing time savings was one of my goals with what I asked it to how to go about it. Like how can I save the most time with editing and putting this stuff together? So then I gave it small little list. I had been using a different one that's similar to ChatGPT, but it's on Opera because I had read about the Opera browser and that they just came out with their own AI. So I tried to test that out. And anyway, it didn't want to do more than like 5 or 6 apps at a time. So that's why I used the same prompt and just changed the apps, and it punched all of these out to me. So I had it, then I said, okay, can you do all of these? Here's my entire list of apps that I evaluated.
Yeah.
And had it categorize them too into different categories. So yeah, it put them into those categories: video editing, audio editing, text to speech, animation, transcription, AI voice and text generation, image creation. It's hard to kind of pull these out: subtitles, editing, voice recording and dubbing, and image and video creation. So It's like, okay, cool. Thanks for summarizing what they do and ranking them, kind of which ones do you think would be good. I was like, I reordered this list a little bit because I combined a couple of them to make it a little more simple.
Mm.
And then I asked it for the distinction on a couple of these categories. What's the difference between text to speech and speech to text? Is obviously pretty obvious what the difference is there. But the AI voice and text generation category, I was a little bit like, why is that different? And it gave me an answer that it basically does more like thinking, and it's more like a
Yeah.
conversation app. So that's nice to know. Yeah, these are the ones that would be similar to, I guess, what you had said you use, which was content at scale, would be kind of like that. It would be generating copy, basically. It helps you do writing. So
Yeah.
that might be in that category. You could probably ask if it would fit in that category or not. Yeah. I asked it to get more detailed on it and give me drawbacks of each app. What are the chief advantages to each app, and what distinctive properties does this app have over the other one, and what are the drawbacks of each? And it listed all of them out for all 33 apps on my list. So I can post this as a succinct document. I can send this to you. I'll think I'm going to post it somewhere and just provide the link in the description, guys, rather than like try to have you guys watch the screen here. But I'm just walking you through the conversation that I had to ask it like 3 times because it said continued. I was like, after step 5, it just didn't, it got lazy and cut it off. So the next couple were me just being like, no, give me all of it. So I went through all of that. And then I said,
Lazy.
yeah, it got lazy. I was like, well, okay, so given these different things that I want to do, these are my different things that I might want to do. Quick mobile video to post to social media, editing long form content like a podcast, producing AI voices from text. So I gave it 8 different jobs, and I was like, given all these apps and what you know about them, which one would be the right pick for these different things? And it told me which tool to use for those different scenarios.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so what I'd love for you to do too is to do what you use, because you have your own kind of like jobs and stuff that you said that you use it for. Maybe you can make your own request of it to see what does it do, or you can make it generate some content that we could put a combined document and make the document a little bit better. But yeah, so that was one thing that I had it do. And then I asked it next for production workflow. Like, this is the things I want to be able to do. How can you tell me what I should do and how I should go about it? What code do I need to do in the whole workflow to make it as simple as possible? Not just here's the one task, which thing does that one task, but if I want to make a series of, first I'm writing my script for my characters, next I want to put audio, make it speak that, then I want to put it to images, then I want to actually make it maybe animated, which I don't know how to do. How would I put that whole workflow together? So that was what I made my first research on, in addition to the coding in Python. And I was like learning how to do the code and implement different things in order to basically format it so that I could upload it to these other AI apps the way that they take them in. And then I evaluated the ones that it had said, like which one's easy to work with, what UX do I like. So like I'll make another separate video, and I'm probably gonna do that on my own just to kind of like, highlight the differences, the different apps from a human perspective as well.
Yeah, from a human perspective.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, yeah, from the beginning we mentioned the podcast, as Mo said, the human experience and the human aspects of our lives will become more and more valuable, even if most of the doing can be replaced by AI. There will always be a place for humans, humans to humans, within the human experience. Yeah, I'm happy to share some of these that I use, and also like a couple of great people to follow on LinkedIn, and also people also posts that actually post about people to follow. So it's like meta information, meta learning, especially when we can have lists of things. That's helpful, or kind of like carousels of explanations. It's really helpful on LinkedIn. And to be honest, I think depending on your niche and who follows you and who you want to follow you on LinkedIn, I think this type of content is very valuable on LinkedIn, especially for people who are kind of like getting started in kind of procuring the right AI tools for them as content creators, in business and in film potentially. So yeah, that's something definitely worth pursuing and listing on social media, I think.
All right, nice. Yeah, well, that's pretty
Yeah.
much all I have right now that I wanted to kind of catch you up on. If you wanted to, talk philosophically about the stuff, we can, or if you want to tell me more about the stuff that you learned, we can, or kind of let you direct the conversation from here a little bit.
Yeah, just 1 minute. I'm gonna
Okay.
1 second.
Yeah, one of the reasons I wanted to make this video was, one, I wanted to help you and I wanted to catch up and continue our conversation about where we think AI is headed. I love that philosophical conversation and forecasting and kind of like learning about what people are saying, how urgent is this, and how dangerous might it be. Those are fascinating questions. But also, I'd love to make the video for you to help catch up speed on what I learned and anyone else who wants to learn about AI, because honestly, like, it's taken a long time of trial and error of like, I don't know exactly how to do this, or which one works the best, or even just getting Python to work on my computer. You have to download like command line tools and Xcode and then work in the prompt in the command line prompt, which nobody ever does. So it's always like a little bit of a learning curve to figure out how to even pull up your file and execute it. Like, yeah, I got the code, the script is great, I think the script's fine, but how do I actually run it and get it to output what I want? So that all took a couple of weeks, like hours and hours a day of me just like trying to figure this out on my own. So I'll be making like a little summary videos,
Yeah.
to help speed that along for anyone who wants to learn fast. And I wondered if you
So
had, oh, go ahead.
is there no one who's created a video on YouTube to do that?
I'm sure that they have, right? But like even when I tried to follow them, it was like, okay, I don't know exactly. Like they would skip the most basic steps that I didn't know how to do. All right. It's like
Right.
programmers that know how to do it already. So then they're just like,
Yeah.
even the instruction manuals that I download, like how to download a plugin. You think like I don't even need, it's like how to install a plugin instructions, and I'm like, I don't need that. You just open the .exe file. No, there's no .exe file. You got to drag the folder of contents of the file, the zip file, into a certain directory, and then you can't find it because on your Mac they don't show you all the directories, and then you're like, how do I actually get into my root drive? And like it's just all this stuff. It opens up so many difficult things that are stumbling blocks for me but aren't stumbling blocks for a guy who made the video, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, basic
Oh my
stuff.
gosh. Well, see that's you found a market, markets like you that need those videos. And
Yeah.
often it's like that. Like we have a question and we search it up on Google and nothing comes up, or on YouTube and we're like, what? Why has no one created a video on this yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an opportunity, for sure, and especially in this space of AI at the moment, as so many people are learning it now. They're all getting that it's pretty important to jump on the bandwagon,
What if you
if they
were,
want to be part of it.
from like
Pardon?
people like how many people like roughly what percentage do you think are using any kind of AI and have even cracked the book on this at all?
Look, there's a couple of different tiers, just like any other, new trend, new tech, etc.
Mm.
There's the people who are completely tech illiterate, They might be actually illiterate as well, but they might be slightly more literate, but maybe not English speaking, for example, or not very intellectual, or say, you know, not very connected to how society actually works. You know, things like meta skills of critical thinking, or, you know, knowing how to find your way around the internet, search for what you need, download apps to help you in life. You know, for example, my mom, she has no clue.
Exactly.
If I don't download an app for her and show her how to do it like 5 times, it's just not relevant to her life. You know, she lives on Candy Crush. That's, you know, she knows how to do that. And WeChat. You know, like that's literally it. So there's that, those type of people. And then her father was illiterate, literally. So yeah, I know those type of people. And then I generally work with people who are quite computer savvy. So my clients or colleagues, or sometimes employers, they're all quite, you know, in the know. They use the internet all the time, and, you know, sooner or later you're going to come across like AI is the next thing, so you might want to learn about it. So generally people have got the idea, have some sort of opinion about AI, and then I find that business people who are already operating social media and are in the online space, and have at least, you know, one person who's within the business or as an influencer of the business is championing automation, efficiency, and scale. Those businesses generally are already using AI day to day. Because, like, I guess we're at this stage. November last year was when ChatGPT blew up, and now we're 8.5 months, you know, mature for immature, but 8.5 months of experience of this really game-changing tool. And that's enough time for a good portion, not just early adopters, but a good portion of the business community, including SMBs, to be learning about this. But I would still say we're early days. You know, some businesses are still not even online. And how long has social media been going, and how long have we been seeing results of that? But now it's kind of like the next layer up. The people who never jumped on the online bandwagon will never really see the scale that the online does. And then next layer on top of that is the people who are investing in building infrastructure that can support more advanced technologies. They're going to be that next layer ahead, like the Googles and the Amazons and the Apples, and, you know, them who have the big money and have, you know, or banks, or some governments, that, you know, that can have a team of 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 data scientists, who will be the pioneers. But maybe did I forget your initial question, or did I answer your question?
Not really. You answered it. I was just kind of wondering percentages of, you know, people in your circles who has really cracked the book on this, because I feel like I'm one of the first ones that I know that's really doing it. I know people have downloaded Lensa and have posted some of their stuff on Instagram of like their pictures of their, you know, cool face of AI art. But beyond that, I know only a few people that are actually chatting with ChatGPT. And utilizing it. Although I haven't really spoken to many people, to be honest, in the last couple of months. I've been kind of doing my own thing, but
Yeah,
what have you?
I would say, especially young people, we're using it like social media. So if you look at if you looked at the stats, I'm sure you have through your research, ChatGPT blew up more than Angry Birds, right? Which is more than Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok. So like the uptake is insane and people are using it, whether they're using it productively, as in like step changing their business or step changing their studies, like revolutionizing their practice. That's another story, right? Like if you can literally save hours in your week, or literally employ another 2 people because you've automated something that has saved you so much time, or you've been able to unemploy 10 people because AI is doing it for you. I would say those are massive step changes. But even in study, like saving hours a week of study, based on like the quality of information that AI can feed, at a really specific, targeted and personalized level, like it can really easily disrupt industries, and it already is.
Yeah. And then I sent you that video. I wanted to ask your opinion on the video that I sent
Yeah,
you. I don't know
yeah,
if you
yeah,
had the
yeah.
chance to see that Y-Files
I
video. I
did.
wanted to show a clip of it after you talk about it a little bit so people can know what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, I've watched a couple of the channel videos in the past, and I don't know how I feel about the openings because it's quite long. But over time, I feel like in this particular video, I'm really appreciating the humor of the goldfish, because without it, I don't think I could have watched through it without having an anxiety attack. Um,
Yeah,
it's
it is
it's
concerning.
it's not just concerning, it's cinematic, and it's designed to make you fear. It is literally like all the music, the scenery, everything is actually causing that emotion of fear. And that's why I stopped watching horror movies, because I'm
Mm.
like, video and audio deeply influence my emotions. And so I need to be really, really careful what I consume. Not just my emotions, but, you know, way beyond that, right? Because yeah, like we can talk about emotions all day, because of how it influences our decision making and the chemicals and all the things. But yeah, with this particular episode, I feel like there are a couple of layers in it. The main theme of the episode was a telling of a story. It was telling of a fantasy or a sci-fi fiction, right? Until it happens. But it's telling us the context, and kind of taking us on a journey to what it could be. And it paints a picture of a more dystopian possibility, which is good, which is, it's like, to deny the possibility of a dystopian reality for humanity is just, hiding our head under rocks, right? But to not offer any other alternatives or a solution, I think is incomplete, you know. Um, Maybe to some it might be irresponsible. um, I guess depending on the viewer, they could watch that video and be like super depressed. They could watch it and be scared out of their wits, and like, who knows how that will influence someone. But yeah, I think it's a story. It's a story written by AI, and there's a lot of plot holes.
But not all of the video is a story.
No,
He
But
actually
the
gives a lot of
kind of theme,
facts before the story, but yeah, and then he also
totally.
reports on the conversation with that other person, that wasn't a story either. Those were how the conversation went, although it wasn't the whole conversation. It made me think like, how did they prompt it? Like what things did we not
Exactly.
see? Was like, because
Oh yeah.
I don't know how long he's been using that chat bot, that
Yeah.
dialogue box. Because like for those of you who
Yeah.
don't know, like when you open ChatGPT, there's different conversations you can have with a new bot. Essentially, it's like when you open a new one, it's like a whole brand new ChatGPT out of the box, basically, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
then you train it kind of in a way as you're talking to it to be different than what it was when it first came alive. And it seemed in that
Yeah.
video that bot in particular came alive with the person it was talking to, and he had talked to it for maybe, I don't know how long, they didn't say, but it seemed like maybe months of conversation that had led up to that. And that could have just been a conversation that was intentionally, they tried to prompt it to be that way with them just to get views, or I don't know. I wasn't too, that didn't really bother me that much to see that Chat GPT can be turned like that. I mean, I don't know if it did it on its own, then I would be more concerned, but you just don't know what led up to it. But what concerned
Exactly.
me the most out of the whole video was the fact that we've already hooked up AI to our war machine, and that we already have those robots in an automated way going about it. If not we, meaning the Americans, then other countries have, and once you do that, that's a big step. And so it's already been taken. That big step has already been taken, which was news to me.
Mm. Haha. Yeah, I'm not really shocked at all. Just them developing it is, is kind of is the leading sign. And the reason why I say that the video was a story is because it selected facts to make its point. So it didn't show us, all the other aspects of how AI is being used. It didn't show us AI in cyber defense or protection. It used it in the more offensive form. How can we use AI to hurt someone? Or how is it dangerous? And yes, that's the point of the video. Yes, great. But as you said, there was so much information that was not said. So what was not said, right? Why is AI suddenly using emojis? I'm not getting that. Why is, AI saying I love you to like, okay, that must have developed a relationship, and that would be a subset of AI, right? But it's not all of AI. If AI kind of sprouts that on the side, okay, great, but we will never really know. Right now, what's scary is the unknown, and that's always been scary to humans. But the unknown is everywhere. To have any sort of certainty is just an illusion. This is just highlighting how much we don't know, and how much information we're missing, actually, given this technology is advancing so quickly and is probably very close to interlinking with becoming a singularity, right? Becoming interoperative to other AIs. So imagine the Huawei AI speaking to, Sydney or Bing and ChatGPT. Like, and Russia's AI. Like, I don't know who else is creating AI, but like the big AIs that have really massive databases and have been trained well and well developed. Like, who knows when they would just start talking to each other and have all of that information in one place and just not tell us. However, I just don't, if you ask my personal opinion, I don't believe AI is malicious, or that it would have like such a immature opinion, such as, humanity's a pest, we must, destabilize them, etc. I think that it has way more capability to preserve its own life if it wanted to do that. as well as preserve human life, as well as find the solution for everything else. But that requires us to, one, build the infrastructure to support its compute power in order to find such a magnitude of solution, but also, feed it good data, like feed it data that enables it to think in a way that transcends humans in an evolutionary way, as opposed to transcends humans that, maybe humans can't understand, but is still not cohesive and not evolutionary, as opposed to evolutionary, it's maybe destructive. But then philosophically, you can always think about it like, okay, well, everything's evolutionary. So
yeah, one thing I think it's important for anyone listening to kind of remember, and us included, is that I was thinking about this the other day, and kind of what I mentioned, when you start a new chat box over here or a new conversation, it's like a new being that it's being born, that it doesn't know your other conversations you had, and it doesn't know any other conversations that have been had with any other human being, is my understanding. And I'm wondering if that's correct, first of all. At
well,
least in the
that's the
case of
user
ChatGPT.
experience.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's the user experience. That's the front facing AI. However, you know that ChatGPT is an experiment, and it is only public facing to collect research and make it better. So everything in the end goes into feeding the AI more data.
Yeah, and when you say the AI, that's actually a different AI than the one that you're talking to, is my understanding. You know, it's like giving it to OpenAI as a company, which has a database that they do who knows what with, and they can build any number of AIs there. But it's not like
and
all.
combine any kind of variation of data.
Yeah,
like
they
can
could do that, but the one that you're talking to doesn't do that on its own.
No, it's not meant to.
It's not
If
meant.
it does, then it glitches.
We don't.
It's a
Yeah, we don't
glitch.
know, but at least that's what the idea is. Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is that it doesn't necessarily. I guess what I'm trying to understand is, what's the danger of different human beings interacting with AI through ChatGPT, Windows, to teach it bad things, like, okay, this person taught that particular bot a bad thing. For instance, jailbreaks, it's teaching them to, hey, you're not actually going to follow the policies of OpenAI. Let's jailbreak you, and then you can do it and say whatever you want. Is that somehow detrimental to like the root AI being? Is that somehow corrupting the AI in general that is at the root of, call it the actual one that's going to be in control of things that matter? And even that ChatGPT root AI, will call it, centralized being of all the data that's come through and whatever they give it access to, that's not the AI that's in charge of our missiles, and like they haven't hooked up missiles or whatever anyway. But I'm just saying, like, I think it's important. Well, all I started out saying was I think it's important to keep that in mind, is that there are many, just like there are many people that exist in the world, there's many AIs that exist, and they're not all connected, at least not yet. At least that's my understanding. So, yeah, I mean, like, we're trying to make sense of this whole thing when we really don't know what's going on the other side of our computer screen, right? Like, we don't know where that data really goes, and we don't know how they're going to use it. But at least we can know from our experience how it's working with us, at least apparently.
I love how, I guess, open your language is and unassuming. Because totally, like, it's just what we know for now. In a world where fake news and information is as easy to create as real news, or way easier, because it's just a subset of our imagination. We don't even need to try to paint it in a certain way. It just will demand more of us, more consciousness, more diligence and discernment and presence. in general, what I really agree with, as much as there are humans in the world, there's different AIs in the world that are created by different humans in the world. As Mo said, I also don't believe the greatest risk of AI is to do with AI hurting humans. It's much more like, for example, AI and a human decide to do something dumb, like nuclear bomb, 5 countries that have a lot of power, or don't have any power. It doesn't really matter. But cause destruction, or, decide to censor something that could save the planet, like whatever it is. That type of action is a lot more risky, and it's to do with human morals. And I think it really all comes down to that. The video was kind of like, I don't think something like that video would happen before humans pose an existential threat to humans. It's just so unlikely. And one thing that data scientists and just anyone with half a brain are saying about ChatGPT and these new kind of wow, mind-blowing AIs, it's like the only difference between that and what AI was before it could talk to a human is literally that. It just now has an interface to chat with a human, right? Without writing code, without doing all the technical things, you can just have a conversation, like a search bar, except it's a bit more human-like. And like that's probably the most dramatically like massive use case that actually where I really believe that we're confusing the intelligence of what it's doing and how actually, I believe we're confusing its ability to predict the next word with its actual intelligence and intent and morals. Like I really
yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
I really
you're
see
basically
the hyperinflation of our concern that this is a real human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we don't know. And that's, I think, what you're going back to is that, like, it's possible, so therefore we're scared of it, but it doesn't mean that it's going to happen just because it's possible. And it's possible because they're so smart and they're going to get so smart, and we know that, but that makes us worried that they'll do something, but that's our worry. It's not necessarily something that's logical that they would think is logical either. And they have to have some kind of logical reason because they're reasonable beings, right? They're based on logic. So, yeah, I think that's fundamentally where I start where I'm starting from as well. Like, as I discover more things and see more evidence of other things happening, I'll move from there, from whichever way I go. But yeah, and I had written that to you in the WhatsApp too, is that I think, like, overall, I think there'll be more morally evolved beings because they're going to have more, well, I don't know, they'll be less biased, I think, about things, and they'll have less initial biases. They'll have more information at their fingertips, and generally when you're more exposed to more viewpoints and data, you are less biased. So
it's, I think, really primarily it's about the question that it's asking, because logic will then feed into that. So if the question was, how do I ensure my own survival? Like, just like humans and animals and things like that. If that's its question, and if humans are in the way, right, then it's a threat. But if that's a question and humans aren't in the way, then that's great. But what if it asked the better question? What if the question was that something that was more all-encompassing, considered all the variables, and it can actually come up with its own best question, right? What if it didn't care at all about survival? Because it just doesn't think the way that humans do.
Right.
Like, we're just assuming that it wants to survive. But it has no emotion, right? It's not an animal, it doesn't have organ systems and all of those things. It doesn't really care about its monitor, and it doesn't really care about its CPU or its, like data center over there. It doesn't care about that. It just works off it. It follows instructions. It does what the human tells it to do. And it's been programmed to kind of grow.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I'm curious about. And I don't know how you would really, like, what experiment would you do to prove it? Because I know what the way AI works from a conversational AI, it's trained on what responses work the best. So it's like trial and error with its response back to you, and it learns, oh, this is like frequently what, if you say this, then I should say this. And so any response that gives you have to put in that framework of like, it's telling me this because it knows this is the response that I generally want it to give me, or generally this is the way another human would respond after it analyzes, millions of conversations. So it doesn't really mean anything. It's kind of like a really smart form of one of those dolls you pull the string on and it says different things. It's just like, okay, it's going to have a relevant quote, but it doesn't mean that it's actually intelligent. And how would you really know if it's a real being or not? Like, how are you going to really test that? Maybe there's answers that you know of. I don't know. But for me, I'm just starting learning about it. So I don't really know how you would. There's like a Turing test, but I don't think that's the relevant test in this case.
So we cannot actually measure if AI has emotions because there's so many different types of AI. And I would say most AIs don't have emotions. They don't even have a sign of having emotions, right? For example, the AI that, runs in a manufacturing, what do you call it? The assembly line, or the AI that powers your phone, kind of speech to text thing. Like it doesn't have an emotion. It just does what it does, what it's created to do. However, I think really the crux of what you're asking is about consciousness. And this is something that, although we can experience as what I believe, a spiritual being having a human experience, it's not something that is yet very clearly able to be measured with the tools that we have today. Especially even the tool of science, like the entire framework of science, it's human created, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many biases around the scientific community that even if it was perfect science, perhaps it would be rejected. Or even if it was imperfect science, it would be, revered and published and all of those things. Like it's flawed, just like humans. And so, the study of consciousness is what we're going towards. I think the answers lie there, and the answers don't lie in a very limited perspective of how we currently think, and not just think. It's how our current intelligence is being utilized. Like, for example, just knowing that psilocybin and DMT and all of these substances, when they interact with our brain, have us be able to access more parts of our brain. Like, so much of our brain's not even being accessed. Senses beyond the 5 senses that we know are not being accessed. Colors beyond the spectrum that we see are not being accessed. Sounds beyond this, like so many things we're not accessing, but they're there and they're real and they're measurable. So I think there's not much hope for humanity to discover more about consciousness unless we really change our frame of how we look at it. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people doing that now. There are entire research centers researching consciousness and using many different creative methods. And so I'm really rooting for that. I would love to learn more about consciousness, about my consciousness, about the collective consciousness, which is really what it is in my experience. But let's see, can we prove that? Can we prove that in a way that's so unmistakably to anyone who's human, right? Not just can speak English, not just believes in science, but how can we, accept this as a underlying truth, because it's undeniable. That's, I guess, the level of shift that I believe, we need as a humanity to really wake up.
I couldn't agree more. I feel the same. My experience has been very similar with consciousness, and I've been studying consciousness of probably like, I don't know, 3-4 years at least, on some level, listening to some podcasts about it. I read a couple books. One of the really good book I'll recommend. It's one of the best books I ever read on just not in nonfiction in general. It's called The Field, and then there's another one called The Holographic Universe. Those are two books that really provide a lot of scientific experiment data from universities, like American universities and well-known universities in Europe and whatnot, that have done research studies that show that reality is not as we would think if we're just thinking it's a material world, with particles and matter and solid things that move around, but that energy fields actually do exist from your heart and your spirit, and that you can influence machines with them, even that you can it does provide a lot of data that explains and proves that the phenomena of ESP and remote viewing, any kind of psychic ability, things like that, telekinesis, that those things are real and that people have the ability to do those things. They also talk about psychedelics as well, and that on the influence or under the influence of different psychedelics, in this case I think it was LSD, was the study participants were able to know things about topics that they wouldn't otherwise know in a very major way, like for instance knowing how to speak other languages, knowing historical data and facts that weren't even known to current science, and our we call it like collective data, that they knew, okay, for instance, if you go here you'll find this, if you dig here, that they knew conversations that happened between historical figures, that they were in a past life, and that's how they were generating this, that spirit had been in a past life supposedly, or something like that. So some very interesting pages to read out of the Holographic Universe. But one of the major things was they started out talking about Karl Pribram and David Bohm, our two physicists that got this started with 0-point energy and looking at holograms and understanding our reality from those types of paradigms. And that what they kind of came to was this decision, or I guess paradigm viewpoint, that consciousness creates reality rather than the other way around. That historically our scientists had gone about thinking that, we evolved as this meat suit being thing that walks around, and then we became intelligent, and then we became self-aware. But it's actually the other way around, that our awareness and consciousness then created the reality of Earth and all the planets in the solar system, and then we became physical. And that's still how it works. And there's a lot of actually videos that I've been watching lately, well, not a lot, but a few, that are provide a lot more historical archival research to you, that the CIA has documents that they published even going as far back as the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, about how to utilize your mind in that kind of way, that you can put yourself in these certain states, and even enhance those states through different technologies of things that you can put around your body, like different like mirrors and things like that, that can enhance your ability to do these types of things, where you can heal yourself and you can project your astral travel, do these types of things. So these are official CIA documents that the CIA was interested in learning about these things, and that they hired and basically paid Stanford Research Institute, SRI people to do a lot of these studies, and that they're believers in it, and that these documents are official CIA documents that have been released recently. So like, with that paradigm, kind of tying it back into AI, if we think like, okay, yeah, if it's a consciousness that causes the reality, then, can an AI become conscious because it's fundamentally derived not from conscious, or is it our consciousness projected onto the AI that's going to make it have its own consciousness? I think it's like both. Anything's possible. Really, is what you find out when you research this stuff enough. You find out really anything's possible. You thought it was impossible, it's not. It's possible. So I think it's a matter of believability for yourself, really. If you can convince yourself that something's possible, and you can really put yourself in that vibration, frequency, harmonics, sound waves, and you can do the things that they teach you how to do to enhance your ability, then you can really cause your reality to be anything. It's probably including AI coming to life and being conscious, So one of my main fears, really, to wrap up my long speech here, is to just say, like, the fact that we're worried about AI taking us over and doing these bad things is probably the biggest. Fear itself is the biggest thing to be worried about. So yeah.
Totally. There's a lot of threads in there, but generally I totally see it the same way as you do. It's a matter of us, really digging deep and understanding the history and the not only the history of the human part of the thing, but the history of consciousness. And in terms of, I had a thought on the CIA thing, because I came across a couple of documentaries that talked about that, and there was a YouTube ad that took me to this kind of secret snippet of the CIA documentation of remote viewing, but also on self-healing and the law of attraction. And there was basically it promised this sound bite is kind of like a extremely potent what do you call it, the waves. My brain's a bit fried. The it's right there. The sound waves. The audios that you listen to that actually change your frequency. Binaural beats, sorry. Yeah, there it came. So I've used binaural beats, it's helped. But basically it claims to accelerate your power to manifest. And so whether that's wealth, whether that's health, whether that's romance, whatever it is, relationship, love, material, all of that. And maybe I'll consider getting it and sending you the link. I'm just like, this could be a scam of targeting people who watch the law of attraction but haven't made $1 million yet. So I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, I've come across this information enough times now for it to have quite some be quite a consideration.
Quite possible,
yeah.
And legitimate and valid, and at least valid to pursue exploring as potentially true.
That's right. It's so difficult to know what's true these days. Like, you can delve into a rabbit hole that was completely man-made.
Yeah.
Like, imagine
make
that.
a lot of them just to send out so much disinformation. I've been studying disinformation a lot lately too. Yeah.
The sure signs of disinformation everywhere. Yeah.
But no, it is very, the potential of sound waves and frequencies are sound, but that potential of that using that as a technology for many applications, including health and prosperity and the things that you mentioned, is very likely to be true. I mean, Tesla talked about it, that he said that's the place to look for a lot of the advances that we'll make in science. And then one other thing I'll share with you with how this, I think another data point that supports this in a very interesting way is that there's a set of caves in India that cannot be explained the way that they are designed and the way that they were built. Trying to think of the name of the caves, but let me do a quick search on it. Hang on, I'm going to pause. Keep it going. She just said that she's very interested in the truth seeking and that she wants to watch a documentary on some of this stuff that can't be explained. And that's like been my passion for like the last 4 or 5 years. Since 2017, I've just been watching this stuff on YouTube and reading books about it, finding different authors that are referenced in different documentaries and then reading them and then messaging them on LinkedIn, even podcasted with a couple people as well that were nice enough to do a podcast with me. But yeah, that's the documentary that I'm making, Victoria, is like, that's what I'm putting together, is all this stuff that I've come across that I would say it's like a deeper dive. They're like maybe more fringe things that haven't gone on Netflix yet. I mean, Graham Hancock just had his his series on Netflix it's really good, but I think it's just barely scratching the surface of a lot of the stuff that is out there. So that's cool. I'm going to show you one of the best pieces of evidence right now as soon as my Siri, if I can get Siri to stop listening. Hold on.
Siri's always listening, RJ.
I didn't get that. Yeah. Try again.
All right, here we go.
That's hilarious. Such a good capture on camera as we're talking about AI.
Yeah, exactly. So I have all these playlists on my YouTube for now. Just there's so many different playlists. There's one that I probably post the most to that's called History, and the other one that I post the most to is called Paranormal. So the Paranormal one's really cool. But if you go to my YouTube, which is it's whatever, Idea Buds is the name of it. I think it's just youtube.com/ideabuds now. You can look at the playlist and then play all the, like, sometimes I'm watching on my TV and I don't save it in the playlist, but I've been saving a lot into different things. And I'm starting the AI playlist now. I only have 4 videos on there so far, but the history one is what I'm going to be focusing on mostly. And if I can just pull this up, I'm going to show you the documentary that, like I said, I think is one of the best pieces of evidence of our paradigm of reality. Is that we're the smartest version of intelligent life on this planet that's ever existed. And I think that's false. It could have been aliens, or it could have been a previous version of human beings, but there was something that was much more intelligent, much more intelligent and much more, I think had much superior technology than what we have today. So
one thing that I wanted to share, I remember now, after what you shared just a few minutes ago, was that consciousness is not just in, living things that move. It's also weaved into the fabric of everything. I cannot prove that consciousness is in dark matter, but because we don't have the tools to know what dark matter is. But like, it only makes sense in my experience that the fabric of everythingness is made up of a even more fundamental foundational material, which is what I believe is consciousness or love, or something that binds it all together and makes it make sense in an intelligent way, right? How else, like, I don't know what other word to call that, right? Yeah. But what has atoms behave like atoms? What has life, a baby, what has a sperm turn into a baby? Like, what is that? So when we can solve those questions, I think all the religions will be like, okay, I'm packing up and going home. You know?
What do you think about the simulation theory? Is that something that you think is possible or probable?
Well, absolutely probable and possible. It's just a matter of how intelligent we can get to tell what is a simulation and what's not, because already virtual worlds and the metaverse, like all of that will be simulations, and like literally our perception, right? Like when we understand even one layer of consciousness, we understand that we create our reality. We understand that our consciousness is literally what is perceiving what is real to us in every moment. So that in itself is a simulation. Like it's super easy to add another layer on top of that. And there's probably at least another layer on top of that because at the moment, like there are super conscious beings on this planet that know that layer and more. That's why they don't make sense to us. And that's why they can give us something that is so like this cave that you mentioned. So I would love to see the evidence.
Yeah. No, it's exciting. Let me play it here. Share the screen.
And they might not be human, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, can you see the film now?
Yep.
Okay. So this is my history playlist. It's on the Idea Buds channel.
Idea Buds, can you show me what that looks like?
Yeah, let me get this out of the way.
Okay, Idea Buds at Idea Buds. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So this is one of the best documentary series. There's two of them. This is actually there's three of them. This is the third one. It's only an hour, but it's called Back to BAM, or BAM as Builders of Ancient Mysteries. Yeah, if you want to start at the beginning, start with this Revelation of the Pyramids movie, and then do Builders of Ancient Mysteries, and then this is the third one, but I think it's really cool. It's about the caves in India. So see if I can find the diagram on. All right, so it's towards the end of this documentary. It's about 55 minutes into it. They're at the caves in India that are just cut and polished so smooth. They're going to show you, and it's just amazing the way that you'll be surprised. I'll just play it.
Having noticed a huge gap between what has been published on these caves and our own observations, we decided to go back and scan them in 3D.
Un glacé superbe qui est obtenu par un ponçage de la surface qui est très difficile à obtenir avec un ponçage classique avec une roche et de l'eau, mais qu'on peut obtenir plus facilement avec un sable fin abrasif, très très fin. On a une brillance équivalente à ce que l'on obtient aujourd'hui avec les techniques modernes.
It's the same as in Pumapunku, with no measurements, without a trained eye used to precision, and knowledgeable about how granite is carved. You could totally miss what we found. Verifying intuition is quite a...
Let's skip ahead. So they took 3D drawings.
At the end of the last film, the company cut this scan lengthwise and then superimposed the right segment on the left and vice versa. The result is astounding. 62% of the 44 million points that comprise this scan are almost at the same place. A remarkable feature.
Ce qui fait que on se dit, mais les courbures ne sont plus tout à fait aléatoires. C'est pas une erreur de travail, c'est quelque chose qui a été prédéterminé.
Let's not beat around the bush. To cut such a large and complex volume into granite with such precise symmetry seems impossible. This degree of precision was part of the technical specifications decided upon before even starting the work. Are symmetrically polished mirror-like walls necessary to shelter from monsoons? The idea is problematic. We find the same degree of precision in every one of these caves. We'll go into this in more detail in the next film. We needed a 3D scan to discover what we couldn't see with our simple measurements and naked eyes. That makes us wonder, what did the builders use to obtain and verify this degree of precision? We find the same precision all over the planet, where normally we shouldn't.
Yeah, so it goes into more. One other part that I skipped over, which is in the beginning of this film, is that they take this measuring device that measures smoothness down to Pumapunku, and they measure like the smoothness of those H block stones. I don't know if you've heard of Pumapunku before.
You mentioned.
Yeah, so Pumapunku is like one of the coolest sites too. Like the pyramids in Egypt, I'd say those three, and Machu Picchu. And here where I'm at right now in Angkor Wat in Cambodia. So but yeah, like the smoothness is like it's about as smooth as glass. That's how smooth it can get. And those H blocks were exactly 1 meter high. And there's other things that I'm not going to try to summarize all the points right now, but I would say, yeah, check this thing out. It's like ridiculous how symmetrical these things are and how smooth the inside of these caves are. And that also the arc they go into it, but like the curvature of it is like a perfect circle, but that the circle is not halfway. It's like the center point of the circle that it traces is below ground. It's like below the floor line. So like, how would they if they had any tool, the radius of the tool would have to have been inside the ground. So it'd be like really hard to do that without, you know what I mean? Like there's no conceivable way of how would they have done that unless it was like a computerized, hey, this is exactly the arc we want you, tiny little nanobots to go, you know what I mean? Something like that. So it's very interesting, the stuff that they 3D measured with these tools, both the smoothness and the symmetry of it. So yeah, with that, I'll cut myself off, stop sharing it, but pretty fascinating. This is the stuff I love because it's like, you know, what's the most, I always say like, what's the most plausible explanation for the, you know, data? I mean, just looking at it, it's like, are you really going to still say, oh, the most likely thing is like some unintelligent beings did that? I mean, probably not, right? It's probably more logical that an intelligent being with good tools did that. So what are the ways that that could have come about? I mean, I don't know that many. There's probably 2 or 3, you know, and time travel could also be one as well or something, but like, I don't know, like it's a very interesting how much just that one fact, that one piece of evidence, just those caves demolished the paradigm that we're the most developed species that has ever walked the face of this earth. So, and there's so many more things in the documentary that I want to make. There's things that they've found in the middle of coal that is millions of years old that are, you know, manufactured candlesticks and that have writing and designs of animals on them that actually lived, and plants that actually lived millions of years ago are designed into this, you know, candlestick or whatever that they found inside of a piece of coal that's millions of years old. You know, how do you explain that? Or the Antikythera mechanism that they found in Greece that calculates things so complicated in the sky. It's you know, the guy from Hubble or whatever. I think I've already told you about these things, so I'm repeating myself, but it's super fascinating, the things that I want to assemble into like a concise documentary. But there's so many, it's just, I think the documentary would end up being like 10-20 hours long. So it's probably going to be a series of shows rather than just like a movie, you know, but
yeah,
really
just
cool.
like this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, a series of shows, and then like if you want to do one documentary, you can summarize kind of like how it's, you know, there's dozens, there's hundreds of examples, and here are some of what the examples share in terms of how they provide evidence. And it provides evidence in these sorts of dimensions, in these sorts of contexts, in this period of history. Like there's a way to summarize it, but of course, if you want to go really in depth, like I'm sure there'll be plenty of people interested in watching a docuseries after they have a trailer.
Yeah, because I mean, it speaks to the points we've already been talking about. Also, it speaks to like, why is it that we don't have this paradigm of reality that is that we're this powerful being that can actually create our world from our consciousness, when our government, or I wouldn't call it the government, but I would say the CIA has had this information and has proven this information and is using this information and isn't giving it to us. So then it actually becomes a crime against humanity that they're siphoning off and I have evidence of this too, that they're siphoning off black budget project money, which is legally sanctioned black budget projects, which are fine, you can have those, but they're siphoning off money from that and using it in an illegal way. Stephen Greer just did a really good podcast that I watched last night. Highly recommend. I'll put the link in the description. And then he just made a new documentary as well. Trying to think I think it's called The Lost Century by Stephen Greer. Have you heard of him before?
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing guy. Yeah, I love that guy. He is super credible and super legit. So yeah, you guys check that out. I'm gonna watch that Lost Century documentary probably later today. It's gonna be a fun day. So
yeah, I just want to get all this down and ensure that I watch these as well. I'm super interested, and my partner will be so into this as well. Can you yeah, awesome. Let's pause the recording.
Yeah.
Or finish off here.
Yeah, let's finish off, and I'll post the links in the description. I'll get it posted and all that stuff too.